Alara's heart raced as she walked down the grand aisle of the cathedral. The marble floor gleamed under the glow of countless candles, and the tall stained glass windows cast colorful patterns over the gathered crowd. Outside, rain lashed against the heavy doors, drumming like the anxious beat of her heart. Today should have been the happiest day of her life. Today she was to become the bride of Prince Kale. Her gown flowed behind her like liquid silver, each step measured and graceful. Every eye in the hall was on her. She felt their admiration, their envy, their expectation, but none of it mattered as much as the man waiting at the altar. Kale. Her Kale. The prince stood tall, draped in royal colors and armor polished to a mirror shine. His face was calm, regal, but there was a distance in his eyes that made her chest tighten. For months she had dreamt of this moment. The promises whispered, the laughter shared, the secret glances that made her feel like the only woman in the world. And now, in a few moments she would call him hers. The priest's voice echoed through the cathedral, solemn and measured. "Do you, Alara, take Kale to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. All eyes turned to Kale. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face, barely noticeable, but enough to make her stomach knot. Then in a voice that shook the walls and pierced her heart, he spoke. "I cannot. I will not marry you." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Gasps rose from the crowd. Some whispered in shock. Others simply stared, frozen. Alara's knees felt weak, and for a moment she could not breathe. "Kyle, she began, but her words fell into silence. "I cannot share my life, my destiny. Not with you," he said, his voice tight, almost pained. "Forgive me." A cold, bitter wind seemed to blow through the cathedral, though every door and window was shut. Alara felt as if the world had ended. Her mind could not comprehend what had just happened. The man she loved, the man she had trusted, had rejected her in front of the entire kingdom. Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Pride, fierce and unyielding, kept her upright. She looked at him, searching for the Kale she had known, the one who had held her hand in secret gardens, who had whispered of love beneath the stars. But the man before her was gone, replaced by someone she could not reach. I must leave," she said finally, her voice trembling. She turned, her gown sweeping behind her, and fled down the aisle. She did not look back. The stares, the whispers, the judgment of the crowd, they meant nothing now. Outside, the rain hit her face like icy needles, soaking her hair and dress. She ran through the gardens, the mud clinging to her feet, the cold seeping into her bones. Every step took her further from the life she had imagined, further from the man who had betrayed her heart. She stumbled into the dark forest that bordered the kingdom. The trees were tall and ancient, their branches tangled like the secrets of the past. Mist curled around their trunks and shadows shifted as if alive. Alara did not care. She only needed to escape. Hours passed. She walked blindly, her tears mixing with the rain, her mind spinning with disbelief and sorrow. The world felt cruel and empty. She had been ready to trust, ready to love, and now she was nothing. It was in the deepest part of the forest, where the trees grew thick and the air smelled of earth and moss, that she collapsed. Her body gave way and she sank to the ground, shivering and soaked, her chest heaving with sobs she could no longer hold back. Then, amidst the darkness and despair, a strange warmth filled her. A whisper, soft as the rustling leaves, drifted through the air. "Even in your absence, your path is bound to his." Alara shivered. She looked around but saw no one. The forest seemed still, but the words echoed in her mind, strange and compelling. She did not understand them, but somehow they gave her a sense of purpose, a thread of destiny pulling her forward. Days passed. She wandered through the forest, surviving on wild berries and rainwater, building a fragile shelter beneath the twisted roots of an enormous oak. The forest was harsh and unforgiving, but it offered her refuge from the pain and humiliation that haunted her. She began to notice the subtle magic that lingered in the air, the way the mist seemed to respond to her presence, how the shadows shifted as if to guide her, protect her. It was during one quiet morning, as the first light of dawn pierced through the canopy, that Alara realized something she had not expected. Her body had changed. She pressed a hand to her stomach, and a surge of shock, fear, and wonder rippled through her. She was carrying Kale's children, twins, as the whispering voices in the forest told her. A strange mixture of emotions engulfed her. Anger because he had rejected her, fear because she had no idea how to protect them, and a faint trembling hope because in some hidden corner of her heart, she could not deny that these children were a part of both of them, a living link to the man who had shattered her world. The realization brought a fierce determination. She would survive. She would protect the twins, and one day she would face Cale again, not as a woman broken by heartbreak, but as a mother strong enough to protect her children and claim her place in the story that destiny had written for them all. But even in the forest, danger waited. Ilara was not the only one who had noticed the stirrings of the twins' latent magic. Dark forces, agents loyal to the crown and hungry for power, moved in the shadows, drawn to the promise of children who could shape the fate of the kingdom. Ilara could feel their presence, a cold weight at the edge of her mind. She was not alone, and she would have to be clever, strong, and cautious to keep her secret safe. That night, as she rested beneath the shelter of the ancient oak, the forest whispered once more, "Your path is set. The man who left you at the altar will return, and when he does, the choice will be yours." Ilara closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. The forest was her refuge, but it was also a test. She did not know what awaited her, or how the future would unfold. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would not be powerless again. And as the wind howled through the trees and the rain softened to a gentle drizzle, Ilara felt a spark of something she had not felt in weeks. Not love, not yet, but a sense of purpose, a destiny, and a quiet, defiant promise to herself. She would survive. She had been rejected at the altar, humiliated before the kingdom, and abandoned by the man she loved. But she would not disappear without leaving her mark. And the twins she carried, they would be her legacy, a secret that even Prince Cale could not undo. With the first light of dawn, she rose from her hiding place. The forest stretched endlessly before her, a labyrinth of danger and magic. She wrapped her cloak tightly around herself and stepped forward, each footfall echoing with determination. Somewhere out there, Kyle waited. Somewhere out there, the kingdom continued its life, unaware of the secret that would change everything. Ilara did not know when or how their paths would cross again. But she knew this, she would be ready. And when the time came, she would not be the woman who fled. She would be the mother, the protector, the one who carried his secret and turned it into strength. And so, in the heart of the misty forest, under the watchful gaze of ancient trees and whispering spirits, Ilara began the journey that would shape her destiny, and the destiny of the children growing within her. Ilara moved deeper into the forest, her steps careful on the damp earth. The morning mist clung to the trees like a veil, softening the world around her, hiding the paths and hiding herself. She had no plan, only the need to survive, to protect the tiny lives growing inside her. Every instinct screamed at her to be cautious, but she also felt something else, a strange connection to the forest itself, as if the trees, the stones, and the fog recognized her pain and were guiding her. She found a quiet glade, where sunlight filtered through the leaves in golden threads. Moss covered the ground like a soft carpet, and the air smelled of wet earth and wildflowers. Ilara paused, pressing a hand to her stomach. The twins stirred, and she whispered almost to herself, "I will keep you safe. Always." For the first time since the rejection at the altar, she allowed herself a moment of peace. The forest was dangerous, yes, but it also offered freedom. She did not have to face the whispers of the kingdom, the pointed fingers or the judgmental stares. Here she could breathe, think, and begin to plan for what was to come. Days passed. She built a small shelter beneath the roots of an ancient tree, weaving together branches and leaves to protect herself from rain and wind. She discovered small streams where she could drink and hunt fish, berries that grew in secret patches, and herbs that soothed aches and pains. The forest was alive with magic, subtle and strange. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord. Whispers floated through the air, and sometimes when she closed her eyes, she could almost hear voices, gentle, guiding, warning. But Ilara knew the forest was not entirely kind. She felt eyes watching her, sometimes catching glimpses of movement among the trees that vanished the moment she turned. It reminded her that danger existed even here, even in the place she had thought safe. And then there was Cale. Though she tried to push him from her mind, she could not. Thoughts of him came unbidden, memories of laughter, quiet evenings in the palace gardens, the soft warmth of his hand in hers. Anger flared alongside longing. twisting together until she did not know whether she hated him more than she missed him, or missed him more than she hated him. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant mountains, Elara noticed something peculiar. The mist around her seemed thicker than usual, curling into shapes that felt almost deliberate. She held her breath, senses alert, and then she saw it. A figure watching her from the edge of the clearing. Her first instinct was to flee, but the figure did not move forward. It lingered in the shadows, silent, careful, almost hesitant. Elara's heart raced, fear mingling with a strange curiosity. She raised a hand, ready to defend herself, but something in the figure's stance, the weight of its presence, told her it was not immediately hostile. The figure stepped forward slightly, and the moonlight caught the glint of armor. Elara's breath hitched. Could it be Cale? She had thought of him constantly, but never imagined he would find her here in the heart of the forest, miles from the kingdom. Her mind raced. If it was him, did he know about the twins? Would he take them? Or was he here to beg forgiveness? Fear and anger collided, and she found herself trembling. Not just from the cold, but from the storm of emotions inside her. I know you are here, she called softly, her voice carrying in the still night. Show yourself. The figure stepped fully into the moonlight, and her breath caught. It was indeed Cale. His armor was scuffed, his cloak torn at the edges, and his face showed signs of sleepless nights and worry. But the moment his eyes met hers, Elara felt a jolt, a mixture of recognition, pain, and something deeper, something unspoken. Elara, he said quietly, almost reverently, I did not expect to find you here. Then why are you here? She demanded, keeping her voice steady despite the tears that threatened to spill. To humiliate me again? No, Kyle said, his voice soft but heavy with emotion. I came because I need to understand. I need to know why you disappeared, and I cannot stop thinking about you, about what I lost. Elara's hands trembled as she pressed them to her stomach, instinctively shielding the secret of the twins. You lost nothing, she said. I am gone. You are free, and yet here you are. Cale's gaze faltered, and for a moment he looked as if he might speak, but words failed him. He was unprepared for the strength, the defiance, the quiet fire she now carried. He had expected to find a broken woman, and instead, he found someone unshakable, determined, and alive. The forest held its breath with them, the mist curling around their feet, the shadows leaning closer as if listening, and in that moment Elara realized that Cale was not the only one haunted by secrets. She herself carried a weight that even he could not yet comprehend. Cale, she said finally, her voice softening, whatever it is you think you lost, it is not as simple as you imagine. He stepped closer, cautiously, as if approaching a creature that might vanish or strike. Tell me, he whispered. Tell me what I do not know. Elara's heart pounded. She could not tell him, not yet. Not until she was certain the twins were safe. You do not know what you left behind, she said. You cannot begin to understand. Cale bowed his head, his hands tightening at his sides. Then let me stay here. Let me watch, let me help if I can. I will not interfere, I swear it, Elara hesitated. The offer was tempting, dangerous, and terrifying all at once. She had no idea if she could trust him, if she could forgive him, or if she even wanted him near. But she also knew the forest was not endless, and the dangers lurking in its shadows would not wait. Perhaps having him near could be useful. She nodded slowly. You may stay, she said, her tone firm. But any wrong move and you leave. Do you understand? Cale bowed again, his expression unreadable, but his eyes betrayed a storm of emotions. Regret, longing, and an unspoken promise. I understand, he said. Days turned into weeks. Cale remained at a careful distance, observing, learning, and slowly earning a fraction of her trust. He helped gather food, tended the small fire, and protected her from the occasional wild animal that wandered too close. But always there was tension. Every glance, every word carried layers of unspoken meaning. Elara felt her anger flare, her heart soften, and her resolve strengthen all at the same time. The forest itself seemed to respond to the twins, to the unspoken bond between mother and father. On some nights the mist shimmered with silver light. On others, shadows moved to guard the small clearing where Elara slept. She began to understand that the children she carried were not ordinary. They carried a magic that was connected to both her and Cale, a magic that could change the kingdom if it were ever revealed. And so, while Cale wrestled with his own guilt and longing, Ilara wrestled with hers. She hated him for what he had done, yet she could not deny the connection that still existed, pulsing quietly beneath the surface. Each night when the moon rose high and the forest was silent, she felt the twins stir and wondered what the future would hold. For them, for Cale, for herself. Then one evening, the forest grew unusually quiet. Even the usual whispers and shifting shadows fell silent, replaced by a stillness that made Ilara's skin prickle. She sensed a presence, a danger approaching. She glanced toward the edge of the clearing where the trees grew thick and her heart skipped a beat. Figures emerged from the shadows. Clad in dark cloaks moving with unnatural precision, they were silent hunters. Ilara recognized them immediately as agents of the kingdom, sent to find her, to capture her, to discover the secret she carried. She felt a surge of fear, sharp and biting, but she did not panic. She grabbed Cale's arm. "We have to move now." Kyle's eyes widened as he took in the approaching figures. Without hesitation, he took her hand, and together they vanished into the mist, moving swiftly and silently through the forest. The twins stirred violently, as if sensing the danger, and a faint glow surrounded Ilara's belly. The forest seemed to respond, twisting and bending to conceal them. Shadows moved like living walls, fog rose to mask their path, and the forest itself became their ally. As they ran, Ilara's mind raced. She had kept the twins safe so far, but the kingdom would not stop until they had her and the children in their grasp. And Cale, she realized he would have to confront not only the agents but the destiny he had tried to deny. The forest swallowed them, the mist hiding their flight. But deep in her heart, Ilara knew this was only the beginning. The twins' secret was too powerful, the kingdom's interest too relentless, and the bond between her and Cale too complicated to remain hidden forever. And somewhere in the distance, in the shadowed heart of the forest, Ilara felt the whisper once more. "Your path is set. The man who left you at the altar will return, and when he does, your destiny will awaken." The forest was alive with whispers as Ilara and Cale moved through the mist, their footsteps silent on the moss-covered ground. The cloaked figures from the kingdom had vanished from view, but the tension lingered like a shadow over them. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, made Ilara's heart pound, and she pressed closer to Cale. Though she had trusted him only partially, his presence was a comfort she could not deny. The twins inside her stirred restlessly, and she placed a hand over her stomach, feeling the faint glow of their emerging magic. It was subtle but undeniable, a warmth that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The forest seemed to respond, shadows shifting to shield them, mist curling around their path like a protective cloak. Kyle walked beside her, silent for long stretches. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost reverent. "Ilara, I do not know how to fix what I've done. I cannot undo the pain I caused, but I cannot leave you to face this alone." Ilara's chest tightened. She had spent so many nights angry, alone, and afraid, yet hearing those words stirred something within her. She did not trust him completely, not yet, but she could not ignore the sincerity in his voice. Still, she kept her tone firm. "You left me at the altar, Cale. Do not forget that. Words cannot erase what happened. Only actions can." He nodded, the weight of guilt heavy on his shoulders. "I know, I will prove it. If you let me." Their journey through the forest brought them to a hidden glade bathed in silver moonlight. Ancient stones, carved with runes and moss-covered, formed a circle that seemed to hum with energy. Ilara felt the twins respond immediately, their magic resonating with the stones as if awakening to a purpose she did not yet understand. "This place," she murmured, awe and caution in her voice. "It's alive. The forest has protected it for centuries." Kyle stepped closer to inspect the runes. "It feels powerful. I have never felt anything like it in the kingdom." His eyes met hers, filled with curiosity and something deeper, regret, longing, and awe all mingled together. Ilara studied him carefully. The man she once loved and trusted stood beside her, yet he was no longer the same. The arrogance and certainty she remembered had been replaced with caution, humility, and a strange vulnerability. She realized, with a mix of frustration and hope, that perhaps he had changed, or perhaps the forest demanded that he change if he wished to protect her and the children. As they explored the glade, a soft wind stirred the branches above, carrying a voice that seemed to speak directly to Alara. The bond you carry is stronger than you know. The fate of the kingdom lies in your hands, and his. Alara pressed a hand to her chest, startled. I cannot do this alone, she whispered, more to herself than to Kale. Kale's gaze softened. You will not have to, he said quietly. We will face it together. But even as the words left his lips, Alara could feel the pull of danger. The kingdom's agents were not far behind. They were clever, relentless, and aware of the magic that now stirred within her. She knew that every moment of hesitation could cost them dearly. Suddenly, a rustling came from the edge of the glade. Alara froze, instinctively stepping in front of Kale to shield him. Shadows moved among the trees, twisting unnaturally, and a chill ran down her spine. The twins reacted, a faint glow surrounding her belly, and the forest seemed to respond, creating barriers of mist and shadow between them and the approaching threat. Kale reached for her hand, gripping it firmly. We must move now. They ran through the forest, guided by the subtle magic of the twins. The path shifted, branches bending to clear their way, mist thickening to conceal them from prying eyes. The shadows at the edge of the glade followed, but they could not penetrate the protective veil that surrounded mother and children. Eventually, they reached a hidden waterfall, its waters cascading into a pool that reflected the moonlight like liquid silver. Behind the falls, a cave opened, concealed by the rushing water. Alara led Kale inside, the sound of the waterfall masking their entrance. Inside the cave, the air was cool and damp, and the soft glow of phosphorescent moss illuminated the walls. Alara set up a small area for rest, using branches and leaves to create a temporary shelter. The twins were quiet now, as if sensing they were safe for the moment. Kale knelt beside her, his eyes fixed on her belly. They are extraordinary, he whispered. Even now their magic is alive. I can feel it. Alara swallowed hard, her emotions a tangled web of fear, hope, and anger. They are ours, she said softly. But you must understand. If anyone discovers them, the kingdom will take them. I will not let that happen. Kyle nodded, his jaw tight. I would never let that happen. I will protect them no matter what. For a moment, the tension between them softened. They were two people bound by a shared past, a present fraught with danger and a future neither fully understood. And yet, in that moment, there was connection, fragile, uncertain, but undeniable. Days passed in the cave, and Kale and Alara began to work together. He helped gather food from the forest, repairing her small shelter, and learning to respect the protective wards she had woven around their sanctuary. They spoke in low tones, sharing stories of the past, the kingdom, and their hopes for the children. Every word, every glance carried layers of emotion, longing, regret, and a tentative trust. One night, as the full moon rose high, the twins stirred violently. A faint light pulsed from Alara's belly, and the cave seemed to hum with energy. Kyle reached out, instinctively placing his hand over hers. They are awakening, he murmured, awe and concern in his voice. Alara's heart pounded. She had known this moment would come, but nothing could have prepared her for the intensity. The magic of the twins was not just a gift. It was a force that could reshape the forest and perhaps the kingdom itself. Suddenly, the cave shuddered, and a shadow fell across the entrance. Figures more numerous than before approached, their cloaks dark and eyes keen. The kingdom had found them again. Alara's breath hitched, fear and determination mingling in her chest. Kyle, she said, voice sharp, they are here. We must protect them, whatever it takes. Kale's expression hardened, his protective instinct rising. We will. Together. The shadows moved closer, but the twins' magic flared, creating a protective barrier around the cave. Mist rose from the floor, swirling into shapes that confused and slowed the intruders. The forest itself seemed to respond, bending to shield its chosen protectors. Alara felt the power of her children resonate with her own, and she realized the truth. They were not merely vulnerable, they were strong, and their strength would guide them. She felt a surge of confidence and purpose, a determination that even the kingdom's agents could not break. Kyle stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. You are incredible, he said softly. I should have seen this before. I should have stood by you. Alara did not answer immediately. She could feel the weight of his words, the sincerity behind them, but she also knew that trust was not rebuilt with words alone. Actions speak louder, she said finally. Remember that. As the night stretched on, the forest grew quiet once more. The threat had not vanished, but for now they were safe. Ilara sat back, feeling the twins' magic settle, a soft glow pulsing like a heartbeat. She looked at Kale, and for the first time in weeks she allowed herself a small measure of hope. Perhaps he could change. Perhaps they could survive this together. And perhaps, just perhaps, the future they were both afraid of might hold something more than pain. But deep in the shadows of the forest, a voice whispered, cold and deliberate, "They are powerful, but not yet ready. The kingdom will not forget, and neither will destiny." Ilara shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. The journey was far from over. Danger was constant, and the twins' awakening was only the beginning. She knew that the choices she and Kale made in the coming days would shape not only their lives, but the fate of the kingdom itself. And as the moonlight bathed the cave in silver, Ilara made a silent promise. She would protect the twins, face every danger, and ensure that no one, neither prince nor kingdom, would ever claim them against her will. The forest sighed around her, the mist curling like fingers in the moonlight, and for the first time, Ilara felt the weight of destiny settle on her shoulders. She was no longer merely a bride rejected at the altar. She was a mother, a protector, and a force to be reckoned with. And somewhere deep in the misty shadows, the kingdom's agents waited, patient and relentless, unaware that the twins' awakening had already begun to change everything. The forest had grown restless. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and the mist swirled with a life of its own. Ilara felt the twins' magic pulse stronger than ever, like tiny hearts of fire beating within her. Each movement she made was mirrored by a subtle trembling in the earth beneath her feet, as if the forest itself recognized the power that had awakened. Kale stayed close, his armor reflecting the pale moonlight, his expression tense but unwavering. He had grown accustomed to the forest's strange magic, learning its rhythms, its warnings, and its quiet guidance. But tonight felt different. The energy thrummed in the air, thick and alive, and even Kale could sense the approaching danger. "They are close," he murmured, scanning the edges of the clearing. "The kingdom! They found us again." Ilara pressed a hand to her belly instinctively, feeling the twins respond to the words. The glow around her stomach pulsed, brightening as if to answer. She knew that their magic was no longer just a flicker. It had become something tangible, something dangerous to those who would threaten them. "Stay behind me," she said softly, her eyes locked on Kale. "Whatever comes, we protect them first." Kale nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The bond between mother and children was strong, and he had learned that no royal command or prophecy could come before it. From the shadows, figures emerged, dozens this time, cloaked in dark garments, moving silently but with deadly precision. These were no ordinary soldiers. They carried the authority of the kingdom and the power of magic-enhanced training. They had come for the twins, drawn by the energy that now radiated from Ilara. Ilara drew a deep breath. She could feel the twins stirring within her, their magic rising like a tide. She had not yet fully understood their abilities, but instinct told her that they could protect themselves, and her if she allowed it. The air around her shimmered, and the forest seemed to bend to her will. Roots rose from the ground, twisting and forming barriers. Branches intertwined above, creating a dome of shadow and mist that concealed her and Kale from view. Kale stepped beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We fight together," he said firmly. "No matter what happens," Ilara nodded. The first of the cloaked figures reached the edge of the protective dome, and a flash of steel caught the moonlight. The agents attacked with precision, their movements swift and practiced. But the forest itself seemed to resist them. Roots tripped their feet, fog blinded their eyes, and shadows twisted to confuse their senses. Ilara focused, drawing on the twins' magic instinctively. A soft glow radiated from her, spreading through the clearing, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. The attackers faltered, hesitating as the energy surrounded them. Kale seized the opportunity, moving forward to protect her, striking with careful precision to disarm rather than harm. The battle was unlike any Ilara had imagined. She did not wield swords or shields. Her weapon was the bond with her children, the magic that pulsed from within her. Every step she took, every movement she made influenced the forest, turning it into a living defense. And yet the effort drained her, making her heart pound and her breath come in ragged gasps. Through the chaos, Kale moved with calm determination. He protected her flank, deflected attacks, and guided her through the shifting forest. Ilara could see the regret etched into his face, the silent apology in every move he made. And in that moment, despite everything, she felt a flicker of something she had not allowed herself in weeks. Trust. The twins stirred more violently, their glow intensifying. It was then that Ilara realized the truth. They were not just reacting to the danger, they were awakening their full potential. The forest around them bent further, shadows taking shape, mist coiling like serpents, and the ground itself quivering beneath the power of the unborn children. Kale's eyes widened as he witnessed it. They are extraordinary, he whispered. Even beyond what I imagined. Ilara pressed a hand to his chest, steadying him. Do not underestimate them or me, she said firmly. We are stronger together. The agents hesitated at the edge of the clearing. Sensing that they were no longer merely facing a woman and a man, they faced something far greater, something ancient and unpredictable. The twins' magic pulsed outward, a heartbeat that echoed through the trees, and for a moment, even the forest seemed to bow to their power. Then the first agent stepped forward, trying to break through the protective dome. Ilara focused, and a wave of energy pushed him back, sending him tumbling into the mist. The others faltered, fear mingling with determination. They had not expected this, had not anticipated the sheer force emanating from the unborn children. Kale moved closer, his hand brushing hers instinctively. We must end this now, he said, his voice steady. We cannot keep running. They will return. Ilara nodded, feeling a surge of courage. She could no longer hide in the shadows. She had to confront the danger, embrace the power she carried, and protect her children. The forest around them seemed to understand, the shadows coiling tighter, the mist rising to shield them further. Together, Ilara and Kale stepped forward. He raised his voice, calling to the agents. Leave now, he shouted. You will not touch her nor the children. The agents hesitated, but one moved forward with a spell ready. Ilara's hands rose instinctively, the twins' magic flaring outward. A surge of energy blasted from her, and the agent was thrown backward, landing in a heap among the roots and mist. The others froze, eyes wide with shock and fear. Kale moved beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. We can do this, he said quietly. Together. Ilara nodded, feeling the twins respond to her confidence, their power growing stronger. The forest itself seemed to pulse with them, roots twisting and shadows moving like living walls. The agents, now realizing they could not win, began to retreat, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. Breathing heavily, Ilara sank to her knees, the glow around her belly dimming but not disappearing entirely. Kale knelt beside her, brushing damp hair from her face. You are incredible, he said softly. I should have seen this before. Ilara looked at him, anger and relief mingling in her eyes. Do not forget it, she said firmly. We survived because of the twins and because we trusted each other for a moment. Kyle bowed his head, silent. He had no words to express the mixture of awe, guilt, and love that churned within him. He had failed her once, but now he was determined to make amends, not with words but with actions. As the forest settled into an uneasy calm, Ilara felt the weight of what had just occurred. The twins' magic was awakening, their power undeniable. The kingdom would not give up so easily, and she knew that the coming days would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new choices. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of peace. She felt the children move gently within her, and a sense of hope settled over her like a warm cloak. They were alive. They were safe. And together, she and Kale would face whatever came next. The moonlight streamed through the canopy, bathing the clearing in silver, and for the first time in weeks, Ilara felt the faintest smile cross her lips. She was no longer merely a bride rejected at the altar. She was a mother, a protector, a force of nature, and the future of the kingdom rested, in part in her hands. Yet even in that calm, she could feel the whisper of destiny, a voice soft but unyielding. The twins' power is growing. The path ahead is perilous. The kingdom will not yield, and neither will fate. Ilara shivered, understanding the truth in those words. The journey was far from over. The forest, the magic, and the kingdom itself were all intertwined now with her life and the lives of the twins. She would have to be stronger, braver, and smarter than ever before. Kale reached for her hand again, their fingers intertwining. We will face it, he said quietly. Whatever comes, we face it together. Ilara nodded, drawing strength from his presence, from the forest, and from the tiny lives she carried. She knew the coming days would test her in ways she could not yet imagine, but she also knew one thing with certainty. They would survive. The twins, Kale and she, they were bound by more than chance. They were bound by destiny, and destiny could not be broken. And in the shadowed heart of the forest, where mist curled like fingers and shadows shifted with quiet purpose, Ilara felt a surge of power, a spark of hope, and a promise of the future that she would fight to protect, no matter the cost. The forest was alive with magic. The air shimmered with soft light, the mist curling like silver ribbons and shadows twisted gently around the clearing. Ilara sat beneath the ancient tree she had first made her shelter beneath, her hands pressed over her swollen belly. The twins were stirring more strongly than ever. Their power was no longer subtle, it was alive, a heartbeat that resonated with her own. Kale knelt beside her, his hand brushing hers, eyes wide with awe and tenderness. They're ready, he said quietly, voice trembling with emotion. I can feel it. They are ready to come into the world. Ilara nodded, a mixture of fear, pain, and hope in her eyes. She had prepared for this moment, yet no preparation could fully account for the weight of what she was about to face. She had survived rejection, flight, and the relentless pursuit of the kingdom. But this, bringing the twins into the world, was a challenge that required everything she had, every ounce of courage, and the trust she could muster in Kale. We do this together, she whispered. Promise me you will stay. Kale's grip tightened. I promise. I will not leave your side no matter what happens. The forest seemed to respond to her words. The mist thickened, forming a protective dome around them. Roots and branches shifted gently, creating a cradle of nature shielding them from the outside world. The twins stirred violently, their magic pulsing outward, resonating with the energy of the forest. Pain came first, sharp and immediate, but Ilara gritted her teeth, drawing strength from the life growing within her and the presence of Kale beside her. Breathe with me, Kale instructed softly, his voice steady and calm. 1, 2, 1, 2. Ilara followed, matching her breath to his, feeling the rhythm of life in her belly. The twins responded, their magic flowing in harmony with her breathing, calming slightly under Kale's guidance. For the first time, she felt not only fear but hope. She could do this. She would do this. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time seemed to blur as the twins' power swelled and contracted, echoing in the clearing like a pulse of the earth itself. Ilara felt every heartbeat, every surge, every tiny movement as though the forest itself were alive within her. Then, in a moment of intense brilliance, the first twin emerged, glowing faintly with the soft silver light that seemed to have always belonged to the forest. Kale leaned closer, awe and tears in his eyes. They're perfect, he whispered. Ilara felt a wave of relief wash over her, mixed with exhaustion and a strange, overwhelming joy. Welcome to the world, she murmured, cradling the tiny being. The magic around them pulsed gently, settling as if approving the arrival. The second twin followed soon after, equally radiant, equally alive. The twins' combined energy created a shimmer that danced across the clearing, illuminating the forest like the first rays of dawn. Ilara held them both close, feeling their warmth, their power, and the undeniable bond that connected them not only to her but to each other and to Kale. Kyle took a deep breath, placing a hand over her shoulder. Ilara, they are ours, he said softly. All of this, everything we faced, it led to this moment. Ilara nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. She looked at him, seeing the remorse, love, and strength in his eyes. We have survived, she whispered. Together, the forest, still alive with magic, seemed to acknowledge their victory. Mist lifted slightly, shadows softened, and the air felt warm and protective. Ilara felt a sense of calm she had not experienced since leaving the palace. They were safe for now, and the twins were the living proof of everything she had fought to protect. Yet even in this moment of peace, the forest whispered a warning. Somewhere in the distance, beyond the protective mist and shadows, she could sense that the kingdom had not given up. They would come again. But for the first time, Ilara felt ready. She was no longer a frightened bride, no longer a woman fleeing from betrayal. She was a mother, a protector, and a force of nature. Kyle bent closer, his lips brushing her forehead gently. Whatever comes, we face it together. I will not fail you again. Ilara felt her heart swell with a mix of love and cautious trust. I believe you, she said softly. But you must understand. We cannot be careless. The twins' magic. It is powerful, and it will attract those who want to control it. I understand, Kyle replied. And I will fight for you, for them. For us. Night faded into dawn, and the forest slowly settled into calm. Birds chirped softly. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, and the twins slept peacefully in Ilara's arms. Kale helped her stand, steadying her as she adjusted to the exhaustion and relief that followed the birth. They walked together through the forest, Kale carrying one twin, Ilara holding the other, their steps light but careful. They were moving toward a hidden place deeper in the woods, a sanctuary where the twins could grow safely, where the magic of the forest could shield them and guide them. Along the way, Kale spoke softly, recounting memories of the palace, their past, and the life they might rebuild. Ilara listened cautiously, allowing herself to imagine a future where trust, love, and family could exist alongside the dangers that still lurked. You know, Kale said after a pause, I have spent so long regretting what I did, but now I see that fate has given us something greater than we could have imagined. I am grateful. Ilara glanced at him, the corners of her lips lifting slightly. Grateful does not erase the past, she said gently. But it can shape the future. He nodded solemnly. Then let us shape it together. The hidden sanctuary they reached was a clearing unlike any they had seen before. A small waterfall fed a crystal-clear pond, surrounded by flowers and moss that seemed untouched by time. Ancient stones formed a protective circle, and the air shimmered with faint magic as if welcoming them. Ilara knew instinctively that this place would be their home, their shield, and the cradle for the twins' power. As they settled the twins gently among soft moss and leaves, Ilara felt the forest respond once more. Roots moved subtly, flowers turned toward the light, and a gentle wind carried whispers of protection. It was a rare moment of serenity in a world that had demanded so much from her. Kale knelt beside her, placing his hand over hers. They are safe, he said softly. And so are we. For now. Ilara leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the warmth and strength he offered. She allowed herself to feel hope, to imagine a life where the twins could grow without fear, where she and Kale could rebuild trust and perhaps even love. Whatever comes, she whispered, we face it together, always. Kyle pressed his forehead to hers. Always, he echoed. The forest around them seemed to exhale as if acknowledging their resolve. Mist curled gently around the clearing, shadows softened, and the sun broke through the trees, casting golden light across the sanctuary. The twins stirred, their magic radiating softly, a heartbeat of hope and strength that connected mother, father, and children in a bond that could not be broken. Ilara watched them, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never thought possible. She had survived betrayal, danger, and fear. She had protected her children, embraced her power, and confronted the past that had once left her broken. And now, with Kale at her side, she could envision a future that was no longer defined by rejection or sorrow, but by love, courage, and destiny. She turned to Kale, her eyes bright with emotion. We will face the kingdom, she said quietly, but we do it on our terms and with the twins safe. Nothing else matters. Kale nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. I will not fail you again, he said, and together we will show them that nothing, not power, not deceit, can take what is ours. As the twins slept, the forest hummed around them, protective, alive, and full of promise. Ilara and Kale sat side by side, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet unison. The trials of the past were behind them. The challenges ahead would be great, but for the first time, they were ready. And in that hidden sanctuary, beneath the protective embrace of the forest and the shimmering magic of their children, Ilara realized the truth. They were no longer defined by the past, the altar, or the kingdom's expectations. They were defined by love, courage, and the unbreakable bond of family. The sun rose higher, bathing the clearing in golden light. Ilara held the twins close, Kale by her side, and for the first time she allowed herself to smile fully, without fear. The journey had been long, the road treacherous, but they had emerged stronger together and ready to face whatever destiny awaited them. And in the soft rustle of leaves, the gentle flow of water, and the shimmering glow of the twins' magic, the forest whispered its approval. They are protected. They are united, and their story has only just begun.